Hello, everyone. You know what? Retail traders have had this gut feeling about XRP for years, like we could see something everyone else was missing. And now, the Federal Reserve and these heavyweight financial players are finally admitting out loud what we've been whispering in forums and comment sections forever. Wild, right? So I've got this clip that basically lays out the entire roadmap for where crypto is actually going. Not where people hope it's going, where it's really going. And if you're watching from the bench right now without skin in the game, you might look back in a couple years and wonder why you didn't act. Let me show you what I mean. But hold on. There's something else heating up that we can't ignore. Big banks are mounting a full-scale attack on stablecoins. They're literally going after the Genius Act, trying to tear it down piece by piece. This isn't small potatoes, so yeah, we're absolutely talking about that. And there's fresh intel on Ripple and XRP that dropped recently, the kind of stuff that actually moves the needle. So buckle up because we're covering all of it today. Listen to this.
My expectation is that in five years from now, that every instrument that is traded frequently will be traded on-chain.
I think it's quite clear that if there are $4.5 trillion in digital wallets today, that number is going up, not down. They'll have access to traditional capital markets instruments like stocks and bonds, and they'll have access to funds that companies like Franklin and BlackRock create. They'll have access to ETFs. They'll have access to model portfolios that will be on chain, hit a button, automatically happens and automatically rebalances. I believe these things are a question of when, not if.
Actually, you know what? I've got something I want to show you from another video I just filmed. This is going to make everything click. Give me 1 second to pull it up here. Okay, ready? Let's talk about the sheer size of money in the world. Real estate is sitting at $654 trillion. Stock markets globally, $145 trillion. Bonds are at $120 trillion. Then you've got treasuries at $28.6 trillion, money market funds at $12.3 trillion, and sovereign wealth funds hitting $14 trillion. Global debt, brace yourself, $338 trillion. And derivatives, that market is over $1 quadrillion. Yeah, that's a 1 with 15 zeros after it. Now here's what blows my mind. How much of this massive pile of wealth has been tokenized up until now? A few billion. That's it. We're talking pocket change compared to what's coming. Because in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going from billions to potentially quadrillions getting moved onto blockchain. That's not hype. That's the transformation already in motion. So what happens to all these assets when their value gets chopped up, tokenized, and thrown onto blockchain? This is exactly the point I've been hammering at. When you're holding these crypto assets, you're basically sitting on the rails where trillions of dollars are about to run. We're looking at the next-gen plumbing of the whole financial system. And if you own a crypto asset that captures this value, well, congratulations. You just bought yourself a front row seat to the financial future. That's the magnitude we're dealing with here. And this is why people are going all in, risking absolutely everything on crypto as we move forward. Now, heads up, the risk here is absolutely brutal. The crypto market chews people up and spits them out daily, especially when they start playing with leverage or throwing money at meme tokens. Which brings me to the coin I want to break down today, my go-to altcoin, XRP. If you're confused about crypto and need some direction, guys, find yourself a financial advisor. All right, let's get into these banking headlines. Tony Edwards says they are starting to say the quiet part out loud. How dare you earn higher interest yield on crypto exchanges versus the bullshit interest that banks pay you? This issue keeps getting bigger. Let's listen to this.
So I think we're making great headway actually in demonstrating why this is an important issue. And this is not about relitigating something that's settled. This is about ensuring banks continue to be in a position to support their communities and power the economy. And a detriment to that would be allowing the likes of Coinbase or Kraken to pay interest on payment stablecoins. I mean, that just flies in the face, one, of the notion around a payment stablecoin, that it should be a means of payment and not a store of value. But two, this prohibition that Congress clearly set, that we already talked about not paying interest on these things. And so there's, I don't know, how do you feel, Jess? I mean, there's lots of good momentum here.
No, I totally agree. I feel like this is not an easy fight. It's a very well-resourced, group on the other side, let's put it that way. But we have broken through. Again, we're not speaking just about, this isn't about what's good for banks, this is about what's good for communities. Banks take deposits and convert them into loans. That's what we do. And fewer deposits means fewer loans, and most members of Congress understand that that's not a good thing. They certainly don't want to have to pick between friends, let's call it, but at the same time, they don't want to do damage to the communities they serve.
People aren't suddenly going to stop needing money. People are still going to grab mortgages and buy property. This whole thing is just happening outside the gates of traditional banking. Now, I see the panic brewing on both ends here. Banks are watching in horror as their customer base could potentially evaporate and dump their assets onto blockchain. And honestly, if those assets are jumping on-chain anyway, it really does feel like we're staring at the future. But here's what gets me. Banks have had decades upon decades to actually treat people fairly with interest rates on savings and checking. Instead, banks roll out the red carpet with premium rates for their wealthy clients, while everyday retail customers get whatever pittance they decide to throw at you. And I completely understand why people are pissed off and sick of dealing with that nonsense. All right, so check this out. Your bank's tossing you 0.5% interest. 0.5%. Meanwhile, over in crypto land, stablecoins are dangling 8% right in front of you. Let's break down what that actually means. You've got a 7.5% difference sitting there. Drop $100,000 in, that's $7,500 extra dollars hitting your account every year. Bump it up to $1 million, now we're at 75 grand annually. And plenty of people are running their whole lives on $75,000 a year. Banks are staring down a serious problem here. And the irony? They were literally in the room when the Genius Act was getting hammered out. Fast forward to now, and they're doing this frantic backpedal routine after the whole thing's already been rolled out. Money's pouring in from every direction on this one. So who walks away holding the crown? And what's it going to do to blockchain and DeFi moving forward? Your guess is as good as mine at this point. Plot twist though, yesterday a Federal Reserve governor stepped up to the mic and dropped some comments that got the whole conversation spinning again. Eleanor Tarrant sat down for an interview tackling this exact scenario we're unpacking right now. Listen to this.
You should be able to pay some kind of reward or yield on the actual T-bills and money market funds that you're holding. You should be able to pass some of that on to customers.
It's not an investment vehicle. It's not a time deposit where you're holding it to earn interest, right? You're not holding currency for its yield. If Congress wanted to let you pay interest, they should have just said, let you pay interest. So trying to backdoor it is a little funny. It's not supposed to bear interest. And, at that point, it's not up to me to decide whether that's up to Congress. That's why I don't want to think about paying interest on these payment accounts. It's not supposed to be an account for somebody to hold stablecoins and earn interest. You're not holding it to earn interest. So it's a claim on the banks. You can disintermediate a bank, but you can't disintermediate the banking system. You don't have any claim to demand treasuries. You don't get to go to the bank and say, I want some treasuries. They'll say, no, you get $1. Here's what you get. Those are my thoughts.
All right, switching lanes here real quick. Brad Kimes over at Digital Perspectives dropped a comment that caught my attention. He's talking about the US repo market now, so heads up, we're changing topics on you. For my audio listeners cruising in the car right now who can't see what's on screen, we're about to jump into some repo market discussion here. Brad Kimes drops this bomb. The US repo market is 12 trillion Ripple buys, Hidden Road, and G Treasury to help settle. DTCC is over 2 quadrillion, and the 12 trillion QS repo market too. I'm sure it's nothing. And he's shining a spotlight on this post that basically says no one really knows how big the US repo market is, or rather, nobody did. We combine through the appendices and decade of annual reports. So here's the thing, the repo market, we're talking trillions upon trillions of dollars moving through it daily, like every single day. Just Wild amounts of money constantly changing hands. And this is where my brain starts spinning. What if Ripple and XRP stepped into this space? Picture this. All that value settling in real time. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. And for pennies compared to what it costs today. The potential here is staggering. When you've got a market pushing this kind of volume day after day, shaving off time and slashing costs turns into game-changing numbers really fast. If Ripple and XRP were used to settle the entire 12 trillion US repo market, XRP price would most likely dramatically rise due to the urgent need for deep, reliable liquidity. Hypothetically, current XRP market cap multipliers suggest even modest inflows tied to real transaction settlement volumes could force large price increases depending on available liquidity, circulating supply, and the scale of operational demand. The US repo market reached $12 trillion in gross value by 2024. According to a detailed Federal Reserve study, this figure is massive compared to global settlement flows and other financial infrastructures, meaning that any bridge asset tasked with facilitating these settlements would need to absorb and clear enormous amounts of capital within seconds. Okay, so here's something people love to throw around. You can reuse XRP 100,000 times every single day. And you know what? On paper, sure, that checks out. You can definitely cycle XRP through transactions again and again. But here's what everyone's missing. XRP isn't just sitting in one place. It's going to be spread out globally, working across tons of different systems and payment corridors. When you've got all these financial institutions, each holding their own piece of the pie, suddenly that whole reuse it endlessly argument starts falling apart pretty fast. This is actually where XRP's price could go absolutely nuclear in the coming years. Get this, recent models show that under thin liquidity conditions, capital inflows exert a multiplier effect in XRP market cap for price. For example, in this simulated scenario, a $10 billion buy caused XRP to surge from $2.97 to $90. Just picture this scenario. What if every major financial institution suddenly had this light bulb moment tomorrow? Wait, XRP is about to dominate the repo market? We need to stock up immediately. That kind of panic buying, that explosive demand hitting all at once, could legitimately catapult us into three-digit territory before anyone even has time to blink. Okay, so check this out. There was this model throwing around a 516x multiplier, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like, be realistic here. We're probably looking at more like 50 times, maybe 100 times if we're lucky, at least in the short term. But you know what? Let me not get sidetracked because I've got some other cool stuff lined up for you. So yesterday was wild. I hopped on a live stream and the turnout was insane. Just amazing people showing up left and right. We're answering questions, cracking jokes, diving into crypto news. The whole vibe was just electric, you know? And there was this one moment, this one clip that absolutely blew my mind. I mean, it hit different. Let me actually show you what I'm talking about here. And then I'm going to walk you through why this matters so much, like the stuff that really caught my attention. Listen to this one.
This is an acknowledgement that distributed ledgers and crypto assets are no longer on the fringes, but are increasingly woven into the fabric of the payment and financial system. Now, before we hear from these innovators, I would like to touch on roles that the Federal Reserve plays to support the private sector. These include serving as a convener to solve coordination problems and operating core payment and settlement infrastructure. We are also looking ahead, conducting hands-on research on tokenization, using smart contracts, and the intersection of AI and payments for use in our own payment systems. We do this to understand the innovation happening within the payment system, as well as to evaluate whether these technologies could provide opportunities to upgrade our own payment infrastructures and to enable us to have deeper conversations with the industry on these new technologies.
So now imagine they want to pivot. Imagine they want to build actual blockchain infrastructure for finance. We're not talking about tweaking FedNow here. We're talking about ripping up the floorboards and building an entirely new house from the ground up. And here's where it gets interesting. The US government can't just snap their fingers and make this happen on their own. They need help. They need the private sector to step in and do the heavy lifting. And guess what? You're already seeing the groundwork being laid. Scott Bessant meeting with UK officials. Who's sitting in those rooms? Ripple, Circle, Coinbase. They're right there with all the big financial players. This isn't random, folks. When blockchain infrastructure finally happens in the US, you better believe Ripple's going to be front and center at that negotiating table. All right, they're already sitting at the table. So now the big question is, where does XRP fit into all of this on a global level? But honestly, the real question you got to wrestle with is this. Are you going to keep pretending this isn't real? That we're not actually transitioning to this blockchain infrastructure right in front of our eyes? Because man, I still see so many people who refuse to believe this digital revolution is even happening. And I'm thinking, do you really want to gamble like that? If you're still undecided, if you're still not sure, then start educating yourself. Put in the hours. Dive into this stuff. Because if you sleep on this, if you let this pass you by, there won't be another chance like this in your entire life. Let's be real. How often does the whole planet shift to a brand new financial system? Once in a generation? Maybe less? This is that moment right here. So best of luck navigating all this. I hope you're staying tuned to the channel. I'm committed to getting you the news fast, keeping it clean, and making it as digestible as possible. Really grateful you're part of this journey. Feel free to like the video, subscribe if you haven't, send this to someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next one.